This video is by Straight Goods News. SGNews.ca.
I was very disturbed to see recent comments that were made by the Liberal leadership candidate Justin Trudeau 2 years ago that have just come to light and completely contradict his criticism of his Liberal colleague Dalton McGuinty's attack on Alberta and Albertans. Justin Trudeau said 2 years ago that Canada's in bad shape right now because Albertans are controlling our community and social democratic agenda. That's not working. He was asked if he thought that Canada is better served when there are more Quebecers in power than Albertans, and he replied, "I'm a Liberal, so of course I think so." This is another reflection of the arrogance of the Liberal Party, its divisiveness. Yesterday, Mr. Trudeau said that essentially David McGuinty was being divisive, and that his campaign, the Trudeau campaign, is based on bringing Canadians together from all regions. And so we would ask, if that's true, why was he on Quebec television criticizing Albertans for being involved in national politics, in our parliament, for taking an active role in our country's future? This is the worst kind of divisiveness, the worst kind of arrogance of the Liberal Party, and it brings back for many Westerners the kind of arrogance of the National Energy Program, which of course devastated the Western economy. Not very.
Doesn't it sound a little desperate to reserve hopes as his momentum is going up and you're going up to
what these quotes refer to, which I've seen for the first time, is a willingness, a drop of a hat, to attack Canadians based on where they come from, to divide rather than to unite, completely contradicting what he's been saying about the nature of his leadership campaign, and indeed reinforcing the idea that David McGuinty's comments yesterday were not an aberration, but rather reflect the real attitude of the Liberal Party towards the involvement of Westerners in Canadian politics.
On the flip side, don't you think that Mr. Trudeau is articulating a view held by a lot of Quebecers, Liberals, a lot of Quebecers, that Albertans and Albertan MPs are not governing for Quebecers?
Of course, every party is going to have political differences from time to time, and people in different regions won't always agree on every issue, but the important thing is to try to unite Canadians on a national basis. If you're seeking the leadership of a national party like Mr. Trudeau is, yesterday he said he's trying to bring Canadians together, but it turns out that when he's speaking to a particular audience, he's actually trying to drive them apart, suggesting that people from one particular province, in this case Alberta, are second-rate Canadians, I guess, when it comes to participating in the national government.
This is a leadership race for the third party, not the official opposition. What does that say about how threatened the Conservatives are by this Liberal leadership race and what might come of it in light of the upcoming election?
Well, we'll let Liberals decide who to choose as leader. That's their business. I hope they choose someone who has a solid track record of seeking to unite the country, not divide it along regional grounds. And I hope they'll demonstrate to us that the comments of Mr. Trudeau and Mr. McGuinty don't actually reflect this kind of a divisive approach. But here's their track record when in power. They did divide the country. They did alienate large portions of the country. They did bring in the National Energy Program, which devastated the economy of the West. And this reinforces why, in fact, the Liberal Party, while it has a self-conception as the party of national unity, in fact has a track record reflected by these comments of division.
Why is it fair game?
The Prime Minister said that Canada was a welfare state. Should we be equally outraged today at that comment?
Well, I suppose if you don't like welfare states, you would be, but my friends in the Liberal NDP party would probably regard that as a compliment.
No, but I think the issue that my colleague is raising is, why is it fair game for you to play the indignation card and so on over old comments when it concerns your opponents, but when it's old comments about things that you or your party or your prime ministers have said, then you dismiss it as being not relevant? I mean, it's the same thing. If it's an old comment, it's an old comment. Politics are today.
I'm commenting on the comments of David McGuinty, which were condemned by his...
You're commenting on comments made by Justin Trudeau 2 years ago.
So yesterday, Mr. Trudeau condemned the remarks of David McGuinty, suggesting his campaign is based on uniting Canadians, and yet it turns out that his own real views are far more divisive than those expressed by David McGuinty.
I think that's the issue. Why is it okay to get indignant about comments made by Mr. Trudeau 2 years ago, but you guys never feel the need to explain and justify comments that you have made over 2 years ago, whether it's about carbon tax in your own platform or any of those issues?
Again, the issue here is that David McGuinty said that Alberta MPs should go back to where they came from, that they don't have a right to represent their constituents in what is, in fact, to defend the responsible development of a national industry. Mr. Trudeau is the presumptive leadership, the potential future leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, claims to disassociate himself from that point of view, but in fact apparently holds it. I think it's quite reasonable.
Held it, maybe. Not holds it.
Is it possible he changed his mind? Race in Calgary Centre between Ms. Crockett and the Green candidate. Why aren't you giving the Greens that treatment if you want Ms. Crockett to win, sir?
Well, I don't think. I'm sorry. I don't know that there's a Green candidate who's running for the lead, who wants to be Prime Minister of Canada.
I'm talking about Calgary Centre and the by-election, sir, and surely this is what all this is about.
What this is about is a long track record on the part of the Liberal Party of dividing the country on regional grounds, and particularly, and let's face it, this is not new. This is a long track record of often using coded language to marginalize one particular part of the country, rather than embracing Canadians from all regions participating in the governance of this country. I think it's irresponsible. Mr. Ray seemed to think so yesterday. Apparently Justin Trudeau doesn't agree.
So we covered everything you said 2 years ago. We went through and combed through everything you said for the last, let's say, 2, 5, 10 years. You haven't changed your point of view on a single thing?
I can tell you this, I've never said that members of Parliament from a particular province don't belong here, that they shouldn't be representing their
Actually, your party said that in
constituents.
2008 during the campaign, saying Bloc MPs were wasting taxpayers' money.
Well, we said that they weren't affecting any power in Ottawa. We didn't say they didn't have a right to be here, and neither did the Liberals, quite frankly. Even strong federalists like Stéphane Dion in the Liberal Party, and you think even Mr. Trudeau recognized that even the Bloc Québécois, when elected, had an absolute democratic responsibility to represent their constituency. We might have disagreed with their ideas and said that it would be more effective for Quebecers to be represented in government, but that's radically different than suggesting.
That's what you say now. Back then you said they were wasting money,
That's
so that's the same thing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.